Steffi Brown did this whole collection of quilt patterns and the story of where they came from and donated them to the community through the gallery. So that you can come and learn about them. And each thing now, there is one on there called Log Cabin, and I thought it had been designed in the mountains, in Appalachian Mountains. But on the research she did, go back one more, Alice, right up there at the top. On the research she did, what I found out was that design and that pattern was wrapped around a mummy over 2,000 years ago. And what I wanted to do was to tell you, first of all, where you are. You're at the Old Church Gallery. And what we do is we're a group of people who live in the county and who appreciate the Appalachian culture, which is what you're studying now, right? And what we do in this organization is to study and document the creative history of the people who lived here and who are still living here. So that means when we talk about the creative history, we're talking about the things that people make, the music they write, the music they play, the dances they dance, the artwork they do, the furniture they make, all those things. Did you want to say something?
The fighting?
Well, I hadn't thought about it, but I think some people might make the argument that anything, in fact I would say this, anything done really well is an art form. And I bet you all have done this. Have you all ever looked up at the clouds in the sky and seen things in them?
Yeah.
Like the clouds might favor a horse or a buggy or a ice cream cone. I especially like the ones that look like ice cream cones. What? Yeah, they look like lots of things. Well, now, an artist or someone who's creative.
A basket.
And a basket, yes, that too.
Basketball.
An artist is someone, or a creative person, is someone who can look at one thing and see something else. You know how we talked about a parody in the other room? On that picture you had put your faces in? That artist looked at that painting and he was able to see humor in it. So he created something else based on it. Now, I'm going to get down here where I can talk to you all, okay? I like it better down here. Look at this funny thing.
It almost looks like a deer, antler.
Almost looks like an antler.
A snake, actually.
Ah, what do you see?
A snake feels like a different piece of wood.
It does. All right.
It's a snake, I know.
It's a snake. What do you see?
A mountain.
A mountain. Like when I turn it this way?
Yeah,
How-
it's a snake.
How would you turn it to see a mountain? Like this?
No.
Here, show me. Don't hit anybody in the head. Okay, good. All right. Anybody, what do you see?
We're talking about a river fall.
A river fall.
Wait, I have something.
What do you have?
Don't hit no one. Like I know what it is. Here.
Now, it's not anything, really. It's whatever you see in it. What-
It kind of looks like going, like how it looks like when the water coming here over that.
So some of you, many of you see water in it? Okay, tell me what you see.
Okay.
A cane?
Hey, just don't mind.
Is that what you saw? A cane? What do you see?
Look.
A hook? Fish hook?
A 7.
A what? A 7? A number? What do you see, sir?
A 7.
A what?
A 7.
A 7. What do you see?
A candy cane.
You don't see a candy cane. Wow. Okay. And what do you see?
I think it kind of looks like a Z when you turn it this way.
Like a Z. Okay. Well, everybody can take something. And art is one of those things where you can ask 17 people, or how many of you are there? 12? You can ask 12 people a question, and they can all have a different answer, and they can all be right. That's what I like about art. There aren't any wrong answers. Now, what I see is someone, you know how people lay down and they do that exercise where they put their feet up in the air and they go like that? That's what I see. See that? See? Yeah. Okay. So this, the point I want to make is that an artist are people who grew up here in the Appalachian Mountains. They couldn't afford paintbrushes and paints and things to do what would be called fine arts. So they used the materials that were around them and made things because they had this artistic part in them that needed to be expressed, but they had to do it in a way that didn't take away from feeding their families and that could be done at night because they had to work during the day. So this is a piece that was done by Johnny McNeil down at Diamond Knob area of the county. And he would gather up different things. It's one of my favorite things. One of my friends gave it to me because I can see, like you, so many different things in it.
What is it?
Whatever you want it to be. That's why
I think it's like a rail.
That's why it's fun. Now, I want to show you a few things.
I think it's a nose.
This kind of thing is called folk art. Folkart. And what folk art is a very creative person who has not been trained in art, but who has a natural inclination to take throwaway materials, things that nobody else would use, and sees something in them, and then tries to show other people what they see. Now I'm going to ask Miss Slusher to show you a couple of things. If you'll turn right up there. Mr. Marvin Thomas, you see those two little small pieces of wood? Miss Slusher, if you would hold that where they can see it. He found that piece of wood out in the forest, and he thought it looked like a bird. Can you see the bird?
Yeah, the head and the feet.
A bird.
Ow, Lily.
Very nice. Now, that is sort of like what we talked about looking at clouds and seeing images in it and getting other people to see what you see. That's what an artist does. Now, Mr. Thomas also did something else. What do you do with pieces of furniture that break or maybe part of it rots away? Recycle it, but get rid of it, right? Now, Mr. Thomas, who I consider a folk artist, I believe he made his living working with the highway department. He found, you see this little table over here? That table is made from a candle stand. It had a round top on it, but it had rotted off. And he had another piece of furniture that had those little decorative pieces on the side of the checkerboard right there that Miss Slusher's showing you. And what he did was to take all those pieces that would have been thrown away and he joined them together, which is called marrying. He married them to each other and created a new way of looking at things. So that's another example of folk art, where you look at one thing and see something else. Thank you. So what's that called? What kind of art is it? Anybody remember? Folk art. Folk art, right? All right, now let me show you. Right up here is another piece that was just donated to us from up in the Willis area over near Buffalo Mountain. Mr. Andy Hilton made this. It's a rhinoceros. And he looked at this old piece of wood that probably was where he was cutting timber or where he had in his wood pile, and he saw that. And when he looked at it with the creative eye of an artist and a whittler, what we call people who whittle, he saw a rhinoceros body, and he joined it together. Isn't that fun? So this one is called Astor. He made two of them. They're called Astor and Disaster. And he gave them to his daughters. And Brenda, his oldest daughter, thought it should come home and live in Floyd County where her daddy lived and grew up. So she donated this to you all and the rest of the community through the old church gallery. So this is something you all can enjoy too. And this again isn't a good example of what we call folk art. I understand that Mr. Cox showed you the dancing dolls that Miss Slusher's father made.
I know.
That's another wonderful example of folk art, using throwaway materials, things that nobody else would have used, and turning them into something that no one else had seen. Yes, ma'am.
I did something like that.
Did
I
you?
got an ice cream box and I made it into a school bus.
That's exactly right. Very good. Very good. All right, now I understand that Mr. Cox talked about patterns in weaving, in making coverlets, mountain coverlets, which is something that in the Appalachian Mountains was an important part of the culture. That people raised sheep, and they would gather the wool off of the sheep, and either themselves or take it to a mill where it was spun into cotton thread, and then they used it to weave. And you know what they made? They made clothes. And my great uncle said he had a shirt that was made out of the stuff, and it was so itchy he didn't think it would ever wear out, but it eventually did, I think. But they made coverlets, bedspreads, they made rugs. There's a beautiful rug hanging on the wall over here.
I don't see it.
See it hanging on the wall over there? Yeah. And then this is a mountain coverlet, which is sort of a kind of fancy bedspread that was made out of the wool when it was made into yarn, and then it was dyed into different colors and woven into patterns. And that was done on this. Do you know what this is called?
No.
It's called a loom. Loom. And a lot of people had these in their barns or in an outside shed. They were really too big to have in the house much. And they would go out and work on them in those places. Now this one used to be set up to make coverlets. Yes, sir. Oh, well, you're just waving at me. Hi. Okay, so what we're doing now, Miss Costco Allen came here last winter, and she took this old loom and took all the old stuff off of it and restrung it so we could weave on it. And we have started making a community rug, so that what you do, these strings run back and forth, and then there's a rag. Old people, again, they would use throwaway materials. They'd take old shirts, skirts, and dresses that had been worn out and cut them into little strips, and then like this, and save them up. See, nothing got thrown away. And then weave this in to make rugs and all sorts of usable materials. Yes, sir.
It kind of looks like a cat.
Looks like something a cat would play with, doesn't it? Yes, ma'am.
It sure looks like a ball.
It does. But what it is just a good way to store the fabric.
Hey, I think that when you would take it all off, it would be one whole piece, and it would be kind of like a dress. Right in the house.
It probably was parts out of a dress and a shirt at one time.
It looks like yarn. For cats
It
to
does.
play with.
It does, for cats to play with. You're exactly right. Well, what we're going to do today is to let each one of you see how these mountain people made these rugs and coverlets. And we have started what we call a community rug. The first graders from Floyd Elementary? Floyd Elementary came over last spring, and they wove a little section about that wide. And I think you all probably might get one about that much made. And we'll write down all your names, and we're going to put everybody's name in a book who wove a strip on their loom. And when we finish, we'll say, here's a community rug, and all these people contributed to it. So it'll be an example of a range of people working together to create something beautiful and useful at the same time. Does that sound like fun? All right, now what we're going to do, we'll probably do 3 at a time. All right, we'll see how this will work. It's been a little while since we've done this, but what we're going to do, let me show you how it works first. And all this was made. This was made by a bishop fellow, Asa Bishop.
That's right, Asa Bishop, his
By
wife Elizabeth.
Right, Mr. Asa Bishop made this loom out of local materials he gathered, and his wife was the first one who did weavings on it. And she did probably these mountain coverlets. Later it was changed into a rug loom. To do the coverlets you had to have 4 petals, because that would change the patterns. To do a rug you only needed 2. Now, what?
Miss Pauley,
Yes.
when Mr. Ricky visited the other day, he talked to them some about weaving, and he let them weave with cardboard strips.
Right. Oh,
So they
okay.
practiced.
So you have an idea of what the weaving is about. Well, what we're going to do is take the kind of weaving you did and transfer it to this. It's the same kind of process. It's just a little bigger with different materials, and you end up with a little more complicated problem. But that's very nice that he did that with you. Good. Okay, let's see
Now,
here.
while she's getting that ready, it took a long time for them to get those strips of cloth ready. The loom was in an outside building or shed. So in the winter time, like today, do you think it would have been nice to have been out in a shed with no heat, trying to weave? It would have been like being at Double Spring School, wouldn't it? To get cold pretty fast. So during the summer, they would go out with their long balls of this cloth in strips, and that's when they would do their weaving when it was warm. And then during the summer, they would during the winter, they would be tearing or cutting the strips so that they could make their rugs. Now, a lady who gave us the rug that is behind the loom said that her mother would make enough to cover all of the floor in their home, and that helped to keep their house warmer in the winter. They would put them down on the wooden floor. She said that when springtime would come, one of her jobs, she and her brother and sister, would be to gather up those rugs and take them outside and hang them over the clothesline and beat them. What were they trying to get out of the rugs to beat them with a stick? What would it? Well, what would be on floors sometime if you walked in from outside? What gets on the floor? Sure, dirt would have collected on the rugs during the winter time. And so they would take them up and they would clean them and roll them up, and didn't have them on the floor during the summer. They were to use to keep the home warmer during the winter.
Sweaters for the floor. And this loom started out, the Bishops lived in a big house up on the hill behind Slaughter's supermarket. So as you go back to school this afternoon, and you go past Slaughter's, and you wave and say, "Hello, Bishops, what are you weaving today?"
Okay, now if all of you will come over here, you're going to have to go back and sit down, but come over here for just a minute where you can see what we're doing. Yeah, I just want you to be able to see, because we're going to let you all do this in a minute, okay?
Get up here where you can take good pictures.
I have a feeling some of these people would have rolled over in their grave if they were watching me do this.
They'd be proud of you for still doing this.
All right, now can you see the pedal? Can you see where my feet are? All right.
You may have to kind of
Can you see these strings? Some of you come around on this side. Come over here. All right, you see these pedals? Now when I pedal, watch what happens up here. See, when I step on that one, it pulls the strings up. All right, we put a string through it with this, which is called a shuttle. And that helps us push it through. We let it go back, And then we go over and push down the other one, and that lets us bring another string. So this one was just done. Then you pull this down, and that sort of causes it to tamp it in real tight. And see how the string is here? Now I'm going to step on this one. This is what the weaver would do, only faster than me. And we will run this through. Doesn't look like it's coming down very far there. We need to
Oh, we need to tighten this part.
yeah, is that what it is? You think? If we could send it through up there at the top, would yeah. All right, see it coming through?
Yeah. No.
You don't see this thing coming through up here?
Watching.
Okay, we'll do it one at a time. Don't let us skip a string. Ah, there it is. Now, if you'll take that, pull it through, not too fast. Pull it through. Go ahead. Okay, wait just a second. Am I about to the end? Okay, I'm going to turn this back this way. I think I wanted to overlap it here. Are you tearing stuff up over there, Ella?
Trying to. Seems to be doing a good job anyway.
All right. Whoops. I lost it.
Lose it right there.
Yeah, I lost it. Let me come back up here and find it again. Here. Yeah, I got it.
Get the help us out of it.
All right, now, you see how I pulled it there? And it's laying there. Now watch what happens when I bring, y'all watch your fingers now. Here we go. Boom, boom, boom. See how that knocks it back in there? Very nice. Okay, good. Now what we're going to do is,
Keep on doing it.
well, we're going to let each one of you all do it. We're going to let one sit here, two sit here. And one's going to run the shuttle, and two of you are going to pull this down. So that'll be what, 4 groups?
Maybe 2.
3 times 12? 4? Okay.
Start, and then we'll find out
All right. So we'll sort of guide you, okay? Let me slip out. I'm going to let one of you all get in here. Okay, let's get 2 on the bench. Okay.
we could have someone here waiting some, I guess.
You want to get up here?
That can't reach the
All right. Now, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
There with Miss Keith.
Okay, now, I need for you, let's see, I need someone on the floor.
Yeah, someone down below.
Kaylee.
You want to get down there? Get down in there. Now, push down. Yeah, push that all the way down. Very good.
Oh, good.
Very good. Now, you take that and push it through there. Wait a minute. Got to keep it. Don't let it get tangled in the strings. It's got to slide right through. Got it. I think I'm hung. Let's go. Bless you. Bless you. Let's go back through. Let's try it this way. Okay.
I might actually put it in.
All right. Can you pull that the rest of the way through? Reach through there and get it.
Get it.
Pull it real easy. Good. All right. Pull it all the way through. Very good. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. All right, now let's see. Let's pull it down a little bit. All right, now pull it. Now pull it again. Pull it a little tighter again. Pull it just a little. Pull it again. Just a little bit. Yeah. Okay, good. That's good. She got it. Okay, now you hold on that. You reach over. Can you reach over here and get it? Can you reach over and help? All right, now you all go boom, 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 boom. Good enough. Whoa, right there. All righty.
I like this so far. I'm gonna try.
Okay.
I like this.
All right, isn't that neat? All right, let's switch around. Let somebody else up here. We'll try to document and try to say. Now, what do you think some of the very first things that were ever made on this land and in this county were? Do you have any idea? Well, animals, but I'm talking about things that people made. Man-made things are called artifacts. When you look around, well, yeah, probably a home. You're probably right. But then they made tools, and they made things to hunt with. So when you look around this room, you see things made out of stone, things that I think here we call them arrowheads. People, okay, when you start looking at them as a study, they're referred to as projectile points. But what we call them in the mountains are arrowheads. So the very first things that were created in Floyd County and through the Appalachian Mountains were created by the prehistoric people. And we tend, we tend to lump them all together under a name called Indians, but they were actually, the very earliest people were not tribes, but they were family groups. They lived together in small families and small communities. Tribes were not until much, much later. We're talking about people who lived here thousands and thousands of years ago. You see this projectile point on this poster up here? That projectile point is probably around 10 to 12,000 years old. And that means that was a long time ago. Those were some of the earliest people who lived in this area. Where do you think they would have lived?
In the forest.
Well, in the forest some, but they tended to live along creeks and near spring heads where there was water.
They could live
Across the creek, you're right. They did live across the creek and probably pretty close to Grandma's house. You're exactly right. Exactly right. But these were the first things that were made. So when we talk about creative people, we talk about people who looked at something that maybe one person out of this whole class looks at something and sees something real special. And they say, hey, look here what I see. That is a creative person, and they can sometimes show us things that will enrich our lives that we would not have thought of before. So that's what we do here, and what I hope when you all study Appalachian people, you get an idea of how creative they are and of how creative you are too for being of interest. See these great stone bowls over here? You have to remember that these people did not have tools to work with like we do. They had to pick up other rocks and form all these things. So that's pretty smart to be able to do what they did with another stone tool. Do you all have any questions before you have to head back home? Yes, ma'am.
There's also, they don't fight each other, they only, do good things.
Yeah.
Arrowhead.
Well, good. Did you find it?
No, I happened to buy it from a store at the pumpkin patch.
Oh, okay. At a store at the pumpkin patch? Oh, okay.
My daddy found some everywhere, but one of them.
A little arrowhead. He goes, well,
He
good.
found that in his work.
Oh, that's fun. How nice. Well, now, before you all leave, I want you to look in this case over here behind you. Now, most arrowheads are just rocks. They're just rocks that have been shaved off. But there are two over there that you can tell that those prehistoric peoples had an artistic spirit because they picked out a stone that had a beautiful pattern running through it. And I want you to look for that pattern and see patterns in things that are made are usually indicative of a creative spirit at work. So you all start watching for those creative spirits in your everyday life, okay? Let me show you where it is up here. If y'all line up one at a time, and then you can get your coats and things, and I'm sorry you didn't get to stay longer. Look right here. It's a beautiful pattern.
That
She said, one at a time, get him on.
Now this is something that was used to hunt animals, and there was no need to make it beautiful. But the person who created it,
made it beautiful.
yeah,
It's like a telephone.
there was no need to make it beautiful. But the person who created it had an artistic spirit.
A bone.
Thousands of years ago and created it. Isn't it pretty? Okay, I want everyone to see this one that has the pattern in it. This, as a matter of fact, came from over in Indian Valley, where you all came from.
What's the buttons?
Well, to connect actual buttons in a full clothing together. See that pattern?